Ahoy, mateys. Welcome aboard Podcast of the Caribbean. With your scalawag hosts, Mike Wynn and Luke Ferris. It's time to set sail. Drink up, me hearties, yo-ho!
Welcome to Podcast of the Caribbean, a special rewatch miniseries from Least Important Things, where we set sail to discover the legend and legacy of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Mike showed no affection when we had the theme music going, and I'm very disappointed in him. But joining, go ahead, speak for yourself.
I'm very sorry. I'm reading the IMDb page. This movie was nominated for 2 Oscars. That's all I have to add at this point.
Here we go. We are already started. Mike, we have a new member of our crew here on Podcast of the Caribbean. Joining our crew is Jessica Reichenbach. Welcome to the show. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the movie was the movie, so we'll get into that.
The movie was the movie. That I couldn't have said it better than myself. Jess, what is your history with the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise? What's your past, your experience? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Tell the listeners.
I do love it. I think it's important to recognize some love is flawed. Grew up watching the series. We used to go cabining, if you will, small cabins on Lake Huron up in Tawas. And they had a 2 movie theater. And we watched pretty much every single one during the summer when we would be up there. It just happened to be released. We were up there all the time. And I remember, we'd be waiting in line to go in. It was opening weekend and we'd be pretend sword fighting on the sidewalk. And it's just a lot of good vibes and good memories there. When you're younger, you might not notice plot holes so much. So those kind of went over my head. But even now as an adult, the nostalgia is very, very real. And I just love the characters. I love the world they put us into and feeling like a pirate myself.
That is so cool. I love the rhythm and the annual tradition of seeing them, especially because these movies came out pretty quickly. The first 3 movies came out pretty quickly, year after year almost. And to see it in a small town movie theater as well is also like very nostalgic and cool. Like that you can always remember that because it's such a unique experience.
Yeah, I really love, Jess, what you said too, that, you can love this franchise, you can love these movies, and love can be flawed. I think Davy Jones put it best when he said, in this movie, I love a dreadful bond.
Yeah, I think that sums it up.
I just picture Shannon walking, she's had a long day at work, and she just hears you saying, I love a dreadful bond in the background.
Well, joke's on you, Luke, because Shannon's not even in Michigan right now.
Oh, so. Okay. All right. Well, we have it. Maybe she doesn't listen to the podcast, so we're safe. Okay, Jess, we do a new segment on the show called Mike's Nap Check-In, where we check in with Mike to see when he fell asleep during the rewatch of this movie. Mike, I'm assuming you fell asleep based on the runtime, but when did you fall asleep? Do you remember?
I did fall asleep, and I was just looking at when it was I fell asleep. So I fell asleep around the 25-minute mark.
Okay.
And it had to do with
early nap.
It had to do with right around when all the English commodores and Navy folk are in that room in the ship. I don't really remember much about what happened in there. In fact, I think somebody dies or somebody gets killed or something. I don't know.
I feel this is going to be a theme of the episode today where we say something, start talking about it, and
wait,
I don't really know what was happening then.
There were people that were frozen. They got frozen or something. I've seen this movie 6 times, and I'm just scrolling through the part that I was asleep in, and yeah, they were frozen. They sailed through Antarctica. That's interesting. That seems neat. Anyway, that's when I fell asleep, Luke.
Thank you, Mike. That is Mike's nap check-in. I actually watched this movie in two parts, which listeners, if you haven't listened to it or haven't watched it yet, I don't know why you're here, but splitting it up into two parts, I think is a good way to view it. You don't maybe get the full theater experience of watching it in one stand, but I think it helps break it up and feel less daunting. So I suggest that if you're doing a rewatch. Okay, friends, we're going to go into the background of this film, some facts and figures and interesting facts before we dive into the beat by beat of the film. Are you both ready? Jess, you ready? Mike, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, the third installment of the franchise. It was released on May 19th, 2007. That weekend, you could have seen Shrek the Third, Spider-Man 3, Disturbia, 300, or Blades of Glory. Quite a lineup there. And two third films that I think we'll talk about later. World's End made $960 million in the box office globally from a budget of $300 million. Dead Man's Chest, in comparison, made over $1 billion. And had a less budget. So this did not make as much money as Dead Man's Chest, and it had a bigger budget. This, at the time, was the most expensive movie ever made at the time. It was very quickly superseded, but pretty incredible that this was the most expensive movie ever made. All right, here's the crew, and this is going to be a short list. It's exactly everybody that was on Dead Man's Chest we talked about in the last episode. That it's unique because this is right at the time where we're seeing a lot of part ones and part twos in Twilight, Deathly Hallows. This pretty much was a part one, part two, because they filmed a lot of the things at the same time. The only difference as far as the main cast is Chow Yun-fat comes in as Sao Fang, and that's kind of really the only big change from the original crew. Director, producer, writer, cinematography, music, all the same. All right, ready for some interesting facts that you can fact check? I'm not going to do the work for you.
Let's hear it.
Johnny Depp loved his time with his friend Jeffrey Rush, who came back fully in this movie as Barbossa. And they, quote, were like a couple of old ladies with knitting needles. That's how they described their relationship, which I think bleeds on screen as well. The waterfall scene at the edge of the world was filmed at Niagara Falls. Fun fact, if you've ever been. The scenes in Davy Jone's locker were shot in Utah, and the monochromatic style was kind of supposed to kind of set the antithesis of the pirate environment, which is I think is one of the most interesting scenes that we'll talk about. Some of the scenes, as I said, were shot on location in Dead Man's Chest. So there was kind of a lot of reusing of what they already had. And to no surprise, the film started without a finished script, which is maybe not a shocker for a lot of people. Mike, did you catch? Go ahead.
I was going to say, we seem to attract franchises that have films with unfinished scripts.
I say that as a joke, but it actually is more common that films start planning and shooting and working on them, especially like sequels, before a script is written. A lot of times the script is written in development. Most famously, Jurassic Park 3 that we've covered before, script was really never finished in some ways. So
Right.
it's not unusual, but I think it's an indicator of a lot of times what you get with these big blockbuster franchises. All right, Mike, at 32 minutes, when the screen goes black before when they fall over Niagara Falls and go to World's End, do you recognize the sounds in the background? Do you know what those, there's some pirate noises in the background at black? Did you, when it goes to
yeah.
black?
Yeah, it's from the ride.
Correct, Mike. 100 points to Gryffindor. That is actually audio from the ride, which is pretty cool. Those are interesting facts that you can fact check. We are going to dive into the beat by beat plot, but overall, I want to get your thoughts because normally we kind of go over my notes and we kind of go through the movie. This movie was so complicated in my head that I use ChatGPT to help break down the sections of the film with details. So I have a AI approved outline that will help us along here. But before we get into that, because I don't want this to feel like a homework assignment, I want to get both of your thoughts on this film. What were your first reactions rewatching it? Jess, you said you watched this growing up with your family, the nostalgia factor, but what were your reactions watching this again, diving back into At World's End?
Yeah. Well, I took notes on a piece of paper, not so fancy as ChatGPT, but a lot of things were me asking questions of like, why doesn't Barbosa just explain what he's doing? Where's the physics? I think where's the physics comes up a lot. And then a lot of things of like, why does everyone just lie? If they would say their agenda, I think they'd get there faster. So I think in general, the plot made everything a lot more complicated than it needed to be. And I think they could have cut out like 45 minutes if they would have just kind of been a little bit more straightforward like they were in the other movies. They were, I think, more clearly motivated in at least The Curse of the Black Pearl of we got to get the coins, we got to bring them back. This was kind of like everyone was doing something and they had their own motivations and they crisscrossed, and it was a lot to kind of keep track of.
Jess,
I like
do
how
you
you
think the
Go ahead, Mike.
do you think the where's the physics portion of your critique has more to do with what you do for a living and less to do with movie magic? Like, do you think you're more critical of that in general over all movies?
I would say partially, but then I think about these little crabs, and there's this, a 1,000,000-ton ship. I don't actually know how much ships weigh, but they're heavy, and these crabs are somehow moving it and not getting smushed. So, like, if a car can smush a crab, presumably, then I would assume a ship would for sure smush a crab. So things like that. And then, obviously in the final scene when they're in the whirlpool, that is just a whole calamity in itself. And like, again, where's the physics? Who's keeping track? None of them. So yeah. But I mean, still enjoyable to watch. Great music. I like the sassy comments back and forth between the characters, but kind of a lot more questions than I initially had with this kind of podcaster lens on.
The podcaster lens can ruin films sometimes. Okay, this could be dangerous, but talking about the science, the physics, we have listeners and followers that are really into this, as we've untapped some of these conversations by rewatching this series.
And we've angered a lot of people.
So I was asleep most of my science classes in high school. When I saw the crab scene, I was thinking the writers were like, hey, when ants on a Discovery dock are carrying something larger than themselves and they do it as a group, let's have it be crabs and they're carrying the boat. To me, that's the logic that they went with. But is that not accurate? Like, because how many crabs would you need in order to carry that size of a ship?
Well, it's not in water, so the ship is rounded at the bottom and it comes to a pretty direct point. So If you think about pressure, it's force divided by area. So all of the weight of that ship is in a very small area, which means everything that's underneath that's under a lot of pressure, right? So these seem like mythical, calypso crabs, if you will. So maybe they have stronger, I don't know, maybe they bench a lot. I don't know. But it doesn't really add up to me. Again, I would think they would get smushed again.
Especially with the exoskeleton. Is that a term?
Yeah. I don't think that would really help them.
I'll be honest, guys. 100% plausible. Okay.
Get out.
Where's your physics degree from?
Well, it's just a callback to our first episode when I got roasted on the internet for a misunderstanding.
For the upside down bow. Oh, we'll
go
into
the upside down bow. Yeah, we're not going to go into that. But where's the physics? That's an interesting question for this movie. I think I told you, Luke, before we were recording, but I feel like this movie found its groove after about 2 hours, and like 2 hours in, you're like, wow, okay, the last like half hour of this movie, pretty entertaining and awesome, but to get there was a journey.
That is exactly like when you're talking to a coworker in the break room. They're like, "Oh, what are you watching? What TV you're watching lately?" And they tell you about some like premium HBO television series, and they're like, "After the 5th episode, it really gets good. Like it's a little slow, but like definitely worth it." So after 5 hours of your life, it'll really start to pick up. That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, John Mulaney has a show on Netflix right now. And it's called Everyone's in LA. And it starts out by saying, where he does a short little monologue, and he says, "We are doing only 6 episodes of the show. No matter what, we're not doing any more after 6 episodes. So no one will ever be able to say, hey, Everyone's in LA really found their groove." Because
Yes.
like after 6 episodes, they really figured out, like, the show will never figure it out.
It'll never hit the groove. And this film sometimes did not hit the groove. I think it's really interesting. This era, when I was reflecting on watching this movie, like Jess, you're saying about going to the movies and that nostalgia. I remember this era. I remember going to see this film actually with Justin, who did the voiceover to the intro of the show. I remember going to the theater to see him, and I went to the theater a lot this time, and there was a lot of third installment of franchises. Now, this is before the Avengers and the whole type of strategy that we're getting now with franchise properties. It was a lot of times just like, well, let's make a third one. Spider-Man 3 and X-Men 3 stand out to me during this era, same time, where I would go. I think I went to the midnight showing of both those films, super excited, and they fell flat. I think this film is a lot like those, where the writers, the creators wrote themselves into a hole almost. They created so much world building that by the third film, it was really difficult to stick the landing. And like you said, Jess, it just feels so convoluted and there's so much going on. They could have simplified it a lot more, but when you've built up these plots and these characters, and in this case, in this film, betrayals and betrayals of betrayals, it gets a convoluted web, and it's really hard to follow. So this really reminded me of that era of before the Avengers strategy. It was these third franchise movies struggling to hit the mark. Mike, Jess, anything else overall about the movie before we go into the plot by plot and just get lost into a vortex or a typhoon?
I've got one thing to add. You mentioned the midnight showing thing. So this was actually the first movie that I did like a early release for. And at my this movie actually was released at certain theaters Thursday evening.
Oh, yes.
And there was like an 8 o'clock showing or whatever. And so my very first early release was this movie, and I was really excited, a huge Pirates fan, and went to the 7:30 or 8 o'clock show at Star Gratiot in Roseville, Michigan. And right at the point in the movie where Jack's men start to break into the, like, you know, like kind of at the beginning where they're all like in that room and they're talking about charts. What's the character's name? We don't even know what part of the movie we're talking about. But
Control F.
It's, what's the character's name? Hold on, let me look it up. It's oh my gosh, who is it? It's
Jess, we're professionals, I swear. We know what we're doing.
No,
I'm not sure what scene you're talking about. So
it's
maybe
okay. So like
where Jack's guys try to go in somewhere. That's what
they're looking at a map.
So they're like hiding out. It's like it's like the steam room, right? Where they break into the steam.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Singapore. In Singapore.
So in Singapore,
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So as
Oh boy, this is a really
so
tough
as they
start.
break into the steam room,
Yes.
almost immediately as they break into the steam room, the theater's power goes out.
What?
And they couldn't get it out, so they actually gave rain checks to everyone in the theater to see the movie. So I went to go see this movie on opening night, my very first like early release, and the power went out, and I have yet to go back to that theater.
That is so sad, especially for this movie. Like you had to go back to finish it.
Yeah.
That's an indicator, maybe. That's an indicator.
Maybe he was trying to save you, honestly.
Yeah, maybe.
Some nerd in the back was like, they did not want to see this movie, and just pulled the plug. Well, since you mentioned Singapore, we should probably get into the plot of the film. Listeners, hold on to your butts. This is going to be fun. Okay, guys, I'm going to give our sections here that the AI has helped us with. So we have the opening, and then we can kind of talk about it. Does that sound like a plan?
I like this.
Okay. You guys are both in a field where like efficiency and like you're smarter than me. So if you have a suggestion, please let me know. Okay. The opening and introduction of the film is where we have, apparently this could have been a musical because it started out as a musical. We have a kid being killed or hung. The introduction to Sao Feng in Singapore. Like Mike said, what are your first interactions of this scene? I actually like the Singapore scene. I think it's one of my favorite sets. It feels very grounded, like it was a built set, which I always like. I'm a sucker for that. But I really like the singing at the start. I really thought it felt like Les Mis. I thought we were going to get a Les Mis rounding chorus. Mike is just shaking his head. He's just like,
I was just kind of upset at the beginning. It felt like a waste of 5 or 10 minutes.
So
I understand that, but I think it set the movie up to be more like eerie, like chilling type of energy of like, this is a serious issue. Especially with like the little boy who was singing. It gave me like goosebumps. But then I thought the transition was a little harsh going to the Singapore scene. I get what they were trying to do, but going from like this whole chorus of people that were going to the gallows to Elizabeth singing in a boat didn't really land for me. It kind of like lost that like serious kind of more critical tone. I did like the Singapore scene. I thought it was interesting kind of opening up with, hey, we're expanding the realm of pirates from just the Caribbean to now we need the pirate lords and we got to go to Singapore to talk to this guy. And then we need something from him. He's going to come back later. I get what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jack mentioned Singapore in the first film. Clearly you've never been to Singapore. So it's reference. It makes sense. What do you think about Sao Feng as a character? I felt like they just threw another character in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was frustrating for me.
Yeah. And again, why do we have so many plot lines? I think they could have done what they did with the other pirate lords, but they wanted to give him a moment so then later we could give Elizabeth her biggest moment of becoming a pirate lord. Which again, how she jumped that hierarchy is a little questionable to me, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. Okay.
Yep.
So
the matriarchy at work once again.
the matriarchy.
Darn the matriarchy.
Oh my goodness. I actually think Elizabeth probably was objectified more in this film than all the others. I don't know about you guys. It felt like
They made her take her pants off going into the steam room.
that was weird to me. Like I thought there was something, and then Sao Feng's character is obviously very creepy to Elizabeth. Is definitely has other intentions with her, but then he flips a switch and it's like, take my legacy and you're the captain now. It was very strange, but I felt like Elizabeth really, out of all the movies, she gets her light in the sun being the captain and being the pirate king, but also is continually undercut by all the male characters in the movie.
Yeah. And like the creepiness of the guys below them getting ready to throw the swords up and they're like looking up her skirt. And I'm like, come on. Did we have to do that?
No, not for the joke. Like the joke could have been still funny if they were like, they stared up and, you see the undercarriage of a pirate, like that, of a nasty pirate, that sure. But it was interesting. The tone of the movie was all over the place at the start from the scene. It was very strange. Okay. So they go to Singapore. They're getting navigational charts. That's what they're looking for. This is our first magical piece MacGuffin piece that we need to track. So the Sao Fing has the map, the magical map, which is essentially a new plot line. And then they have negotiations. And then there's an ambush of the East India Trading Company. So there was multiple ambushes going on at the same time. Eventually, they all escape, and the goal is the crew is going to World's End to use the charts to cross into Davy Jones' locker. That is the goal, to find Jack. Okay.
I'm really glad that you finally explained that, because
Here,
it makes sense.
I'm gonna bring up something that maybe you guys can help me with. What's the deal with the coins? The coins for the pirate CEO boardroom. Like what?
Well, the 9 pieces of 8.
Yes, 9 pieces of 8. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was trying to track that through the movie. So they kind of reveal it at the beginning. One of my questions, or I guess statements, was they never really signify how the magic knows it's the legit piece of 8. So it's like, how do they know that little tangle thing on Jack's hair is his piece of 8? The playing card, whatever. I think it's supposed to be like those are somehow like magical ingredients to bind and release Calypso, and somehow that got attached. The 9 pieces of 8, maybe they're just bad at math. Like, I'm not sure on that.
The coins, I think that starting off with the coin confused me as an audience member, because it brought me back to the first film, and I was like, wait, are these new magical coins? I don't understand. So I think that's where I got thrown a little bit.
And like the song has been sung, and they were like listening to the coin.
Yeah, the coin listening and stuff. That was tough for me to follow. But then it gets really fun, because we go to World's End, which is essentially Niagara Falls. That's the end of the world. I think this is probably one of the most beautiful scenes in the movie. I really actually like the visuals of, especially the Black Pearl at night with the stars, and then them going overboard. It is really good to have Barbossa back in this film. I think that's one of the bright spots of him leading.
Yes, he is phenomenal.
And even like him and Will's is like very much trying to act like he's the captain and give orders. And I just love how Barbossa's just like, dude, this is what we're doing. Like, stop trying to rescue us. We're going over World's End. We're doing it.
My favorite part of the World's End scene is that everyone's freaking out, and Tia Dalma is playing Yahtzee.
She is? I didn't catch that.
She's not, but she's like...
She is. Well, not Yahtzee, pirate Yahtzee.
She's like...
she's playing Words with Friends on her phone. She's like,
everyone's like freaking out. They're like going over the edge, and everyone's like freaking out. And she's like doing like her like voodoo spell casting stuff. And just watching the scene right now, it's just so funny. She's so
kind
calm.
of privy to what's going on, because the people who know what's going on are Barbossa and her, and the whole reason she brought him back to life was to get her free, right? That's her plot. So she's actually kind of the mastermind behind all of this of, I want to be free and unbound to this single form. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there.
Which I really like. I really like that subplot. I think it does get a little lost in everything that else is going on. But I think that's one of the strongest plot lines is her, and then the connection with Davy Jones. I really love that plot line of all the plot lines in the film. I think it's really strong. Okay. Are we ready to go to Davy Jones' locker? I don't want to move ahead if I missed anything.
As long as once we go there, we immediately leave.
So I just want to. I think when I rewatched this scene of Davy Jones' locker with Jax, to me, it definitely feels like an experimental European art house film. Like, this is a contained piece of art with Johnny Depp. Like, it's not. It's this one-off thing in this movie that they give a lot of time to. I think it's really creative and interesting, but wow.
How do you think because honestly, what I actually think is when they sat down and pitched the movie to the studios, they said, why does everyone love the first two Pirates? It's because of Jack Sparrow. Everyone loves Jack Sparrow. How do we maximize Jack Sparrow? And then some movie executive was like, all right, what if we just have a whole crap ton of
Everywhere.
literally,
Fills the screen.
Literally just alter ego Jacks everywhere.
Mike, we were texting as a group before recording, and I said that was the most expensive film ever made to that point. And what did you say about that, Mike?
I said this because they had to keep paying Johnny Depp's appearance fee over and over again.
Quadruple times 10 of Jack Sparrow. Jess, what was your interaction with this scene rewatching it? Did you enjoy it for what it was? Obviously, we talked about the magical crabs that are yoked, but...
Yeah, so I think the scene with just the Jacks didn't really bother me. I think what they were trying to get at was he's alone in the middle of a desert with the ship that he's been trying to get and like be captain of years and years, and he's finally there, but he can't do anything with it. He's land-bound. So I think it's kind of a exercise in explaining his insanity about it. He finally has what he wants, but he can't do anything with it. So then he's like basically being like a little kid and playing pretend, right? You know, he's captaining everyone around and making kind of do with what he has to live out his dream. So I actually kind of like it. It is a bit chaotic, but I think what they were trying to get at makes sense. Like if I was in Jack's position, I too would probably do the same thing, you know? I'd probably, you know, fake playing on a boat and like shaking the lines and doing whatever, trying to pretend that I'm still captaining. I'm actually on the vessel and going forth to the next great treasure.
I do that every day talking to myself.
Maybe no.
It's a little bit of like captain, like he's a captain without a crew, so he just imagines a crew as well.
Right.
And what would be a perfect crew? A bunch of people just him. Yeah.
But honestly, no, because he's a little skinny. But I will say something I noticed in this, I didn't really see Jack drink the entire movie, which is interesting.
He was sober.
Why is the rum always gone? But you see like his understanding of this world's physics really improves, and he does some pretty good plotting, and you know, he makes a parachute at the end. So maybe he's really like the next Da Vinci, but
the rum ruins him. When he's sober, he's a little bit more focused. Yeah. Okay, so our rescue crew comes to save Jack, and they see him going over the sand dune with the crabs. I do like this because it's a symbolism of the legend coming true. We find out in the first movie all these legends are really made up, and Jack's just kind of a conniving, savvy pirate. He's not this legendary character that rides on the back of sea turtles. But here, it's actually coming true. I really like the line from Gibbs, "Slap me thrice and hand me to my mama." that's a standout line for me. When he sees Jack coming down the dune, we find out that Barbossa's first name is Hector. That's a shocker. That was
feels
fun.
very proper.
When do we
for a
find that
pirate.
out?
Right when the rescue crew comes up to Jack, and Jack says, "Hector, good to see you." I do like how Jack is immediately messing with them and saying like, "Oh, I'm fine." Like, "Oh, like,
Yeah.
do you want to be on my ship?" And like, I do appreciate that consistent attitude of Jack, that he's in control, and that just because they're coming to save him doesn't mean he cares a lick about him.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so they get out of Dead Man's Chest by flipping the boat.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Good old.
What are the physics there?
Rocking
There's
the boat.
some just rocking the boat.
The physics are bad. And again, why doesn't Jack just say what he's trying to do instead of like tricking people that he's looking at something? I just don't get that. He's like, oh, we got to tip the boat over.
We got to do it. We got to do it.
Yeah.
So they're back in the real world. As they're going back from the real world, we do find out that Governor Swan is dead, which I think is one of the best moments of the film. Like you said, Jess, it's actually like a pretty dark, heartfelt moment. So it is a little jarring to have that like intense of a scene where Elizabeth is crying out for her father. But I think it's a really cool way to show that Davy Jones is essentially not doing his job. He's supposed to be ferrying the dead at sea to the afterlife, and he's not doing it. Everyone's stuck. There's a big traffic jam on the way to Davy Jones' locker. It's a haunting scene, that's for sure.
And I think that's when I started realizing that she was Calypso, actually. Not Elizabeth, but I don't even know how to say her name, but
Diadama.
The voodoo lady. Diadama. Because she's like outraged. She sees that and she's like, what the heck, man? Like all these poor souls. Like Davy Jones, come on. But yeah, I kind of wish they would have kept more of the serious, dark tone, the whole movie. Because I kind of like that. I think it makes sense, like, to have the outrage in the scenes. Like, we're starting to lose parents, like, all these souls not being ferried. I think it would have made more sense if the whole movie was darker.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, again, and this is why it's as strange. It is a Disney movie. Looking back, this is a Disney property because it honestly would not pass the Disney test if they made it today, especially around this time. That's when we have another size comparison joke with the telescopes between Barbossa and Jack, which is funny, but it's like, okay, we get it. Telescope size. My telescope's bigger than yours. It just feels like a Disney joke that would not pass today, but it just was funny. Okay, how are we doing? We're out of Davy Jones' locker. Upside down. Governor Swan is dead. Yes. Now we get to the mini Jacks. This is for me. This is the moment, and I forgot that this happened when we have the two Jacks on his shoulders. That I was like, I'm out for this movie.
That's where it jumped the shark for you.
I understand. I can play with all this stuff. Like, it's interesting. It honestly visually striking, but that took really, I was like, okay, I forgot. This movie is wild. To have the Jacks on the shoulders. I get the like multiple Jacks idea, but the mini Jacks, I can't do it. That's too much Jack.
With you
little
there.
Jack on the shoulder.
We do find out that, I guess what's happening on the side here is Beckett's plan. So this actually was part of Dead Man's Chest. It was an alternate ending where you actually see Davy Jones and Beckett have this deal with Norrington coming back as well. So basically, Beckett is control over Davy Jones, is using the heart and using the Flying Dutchman to attack pirates and kind of clean up the seas for the purpose of power and more trade. I think that's the purpose. So that's happening on the side. We do find out that the Kraken is killed off screen, and that's really sad to me. I think that's one of the saddest parts of this film is they kill like the main, not bad guy, but one of the main parts of the second film is the Kraken, like the buildup of the Kraken, and then the Kraken's just gone, just not involved.
Yeah, but the Kraken was too powerful.
I honestly I totally forgot about that. I thought at the end of this movie, in my head, I thought Will becomes essentially Davy Jones, and then they can use the Kraken as a ally. But that didn't happen. That was just what I imagined in my brain.
Well, I think to your point that they used footage from Dead Man's Chest a lot in this movie, I think speaks to the point that, at least for me, these movies are hard to differentiate from each other.
Yeah.
A lot of times I felt like so you said you watched this movie in two stages. I did also. And the first time I turned it on,
after you fell asleep.
yeah. No. In two separate days. With a sleep in between.
With a
or
sleep
multiple
in
sleep.
between. Not a nap, an actual sleep.
But the first time I turned it on to start watching it, I was like, is this the second or the third one? I don't know. And then when I went back like to finish it, I was like, have I been watching the second one this whole time?
It's kind of hard to follow, as we're proving today. Okay, so they're on this island, and that's when we find out that Sao Feng betrays the Black Pearl crew because of Will. Will makes a deal with him.
Right. I don't get this part because they come back, right, from Davy Jones' locker. They flip the ship. They magically pop up somewhere. Is this like a known location on the map? Like, how do they actually find them? Like, I don't really get that.
Jack's. I just so to me, Jack's compass. That's like the Force, like in Star Wars. Like it. We just assume Jack's compass worked, even if we don't see it. I that's the only thing I can think of.
But doesn't Jack have his compass at that point? So that's where I get lost of like,
Unless
okay,
unless it's Will that was the one who brought him there, or maybe I don't
like,
know.
how did he do that? Did he send a pigeon? Sorry, I mean, again, a plot hole, but I kept wondering, I'm like, how did they find them?
Unless they agreed to meet there afterwards.
So Luke is doing this thing again, but the line, remember guys, the line that Barbossa said, okay, you have to be lost to find the places that can't be found. Okay. So the fact that we're lost just means we're on the right track. Okay? We're going in the right direction here.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Yeah.
I guess that's the theme of the franchise.
But I did think it was good strategy when they were on the island that they tainted the water. So it was like, yeah, you guys are screwed. Sorry.
Yeah, that's actually was like a very grounded, real world type of tactic, like poison the water.
Very strategic. Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth gets captured. No. So Elizabeth is on Sao Feng's boat, correct?
I feel like you have this scripted.
No, I don't. Mike, this is hard. I prepared. Look how much I prepared, and I'm still having a hard time. I just have a note that I have a note. It's this. We shouldn't laugh at this, but like some sexual assault on Elizabeth. That's my note. But that's when she's on Sao Feng's boat, right?
Yeah. I'm actually watching that right now.
Captured on the island, and then they're on the boat, and then there was like the scuffle of like Will was like, "Oh, I did my part of the deal," and
because he wants Jack to turn into Davy Jones
so that he can get his dad.
Yes. Yep. But then Elizabeth's not part of the deal, and he's like, shoot, forgot about that again.
Forgot about my wife.
Call back to the first movie where he's like, just his main focus is Elizabeth goes free. When he's like threatening to kill himself, to lose his blood to the ocean forever. It felt like, shoot, I'm just focused on my dad now. We're not really engaged anymore. Like, what's the relationship status? Like, need a little bit.
It is hard, yeah. Wait, because they're not. They didn't get married. They got married in this movie.
They get married at the end of this.
Yes, okay.
I love that you said DTR there.
Yeah,
so good.
They really need it. Oh my God, I feel like back in those days, engagements were like a month, and this is like probably a year later, and it's like, I don't know, man.
Ooh, yeah, they are on the rocks.
We keep lying to each other.
They are on the rocks to this movie. The relationship is just not. They're not communicating.
Well, Will thinks that Elizabeth cheated, so he's a little salty about that.
Oh, because he saw her kiss Jack
to tie him to the ship for the Kraken to eat him.
So he's more mad at that than he thinks that she killed him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he was mad because she like murdered him. Because Jack reveals
he was mad that she didn't tell him.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it was one of those like, you didn't include me in this decision. Like that hurts my feelings, which is totally valid, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay, Will. Will's
You're
a
allowed to
sensitive
feel.
boy. He's very sensitive.
Oh, sense. He has got a lot of daddy problems. So
He does have daddy issues, which how do we get to the Dutchman?
They're like on the Dutchman. That's like the weird part.
But Elizabeth.
oh no, they're still on his. They're on Zhaofeng's ship.
They're on South Fangs, and then the Dutchman gets them, right?
Yes,
Yeah, they,
because
like, storm the
everyone
ship.
made deals. Everyone cross-dealed.
A lot of bad deals, and that's when the Dutchman's attacked, and then that's when sexual assault on Elizabeth, and then South Fang dies, and then makes her captain. So she's captain,
And then
as
they get captured. Yeah.
and then they get captured.
And that's where she officially became captain because they're like, she's not the captain. And then the Dutchman crew come aboard and they're like, who's the captain? And they all like point at her.
Which I do like was like,
okay.
oh yeah, there we go. That's like of the time, of course, like they don't want a woman in leadership, but then when things go wrong, they just blame the woman in leadership, which is still true today. So one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, actually in the whole franchise, Elizabeth finds Bootstrap, Bill. He's really starting to become part of the ship. They have a really beautiful scene. Obviously, you have two talented actors in a quiet moment, and it's very hard in this franchise to have a quiet moment where it's serious. And I think it's really heartbreaking because Bootstrap's losing his memory because he's a part of the ship. It's a really small scene in this big film that I think stands out to me. It's one of my favorites. Yep. And Elizabeth obviously has a lot of empathy because it's Will's dad, and she gets it a little bit more why Will's so focused on freeing his dad. I think it's sweet.
I think it's partially set up too by her losing her dad.
You're right. Wow. Good catch, Mike.
Everybody's got daddy issues in this movie.
Everybody's got daddy issues. Everybody's got daddy issues. Okay. So.
Alternate title rejected by Eisner, maybe?
Yeah, Eisner. Pirates of the Caribbean.
Of the daddy issues.
Curse of the daddy issues. Oh, boy. Okay. We have. Okay. So, okay. How do we get to.
So Norrington lets them out because he's on the Dutchman as he got a title change. I forgot what it was.
Is he Commodore now?
No,
again?
He's something different. I thought I wrote it on here.
Lieutenant.
No. Admiral?
Admiral.
Okay.
Yeah, he's Admiral, which is higher than Commodore.
I didn't know that, so
that?
I'm glad you knew that.
I think so. My brother was in the Navy, so that's all I'm saying. That's my only credentials.
I feel like Commodore is a senior naval rank used in many navies, which is equivalent to brigadier general, and air commodore. It is superior to a Navy captain, but below a rear admiral. So yes, admiral is higher than commodore.
We'd have to phone our Navy friends, I guess, if there was a dispute.
Yeah, let's get executive producer Jay Ferris.
Jay Ferris to...
Yeah. So I have it in my notes. I asked the question, is Admiral a promotion from Commodore?
It is, yeah. But he's obviously not happy about it.
No. Well, his love that has never died for Elizabeth ends up kind of biting him in the butt there. So after this heartfelt moment with Will's dad, Bootstrap / part of the ship guy, Admiral Norrington comes down and he's like, you know, I still care about you. Like, let's get you out of here. And Elizabeth at first is like, and he's like, well, are you coming? Are you staying? And then she's like, okay. And her crew leave. Somehow, I think they're towing the other boat behind the Dutch.
Yep.
They start like climbing, and then Elizabeth stays at the end. And this is, again, I got kind of confused. She's like, I'll never forgive you for what you did. And then he's like, I get that. And then she's like, well, you should come with us. And I'm like, well, if you never forgive him, like.
That's a good point.
I don't really get that. And then, obviously, like, he still loves her, and she has some affection towards him, because when he ends up dying for them, she was pretty distraught.
Yeah.
But
well, thank you, Jess, actually, for that, because that actually helped me. You obviously took better notes than I did, or ChatGPT did.
I think I had to rewatch that scene, though, because I got confused. So
I think Norrington is the ultimate nice guys finish last. Like, he's just trying so hard at all levels. He's trying to get his career going. It's just not working. Trying to get the girl. It's just not working. He's just trying too hard. And in the end, he doesn't make it. It's very obvious that this is an underwritten part, because we don't see a lot of his motivation. Even in the deleted alternate ending of Dibman's Chest, we see a little bit more of Norrington and his motivation in the conflict that he's having, right? With obviously Beckett and Davy Jones are evil. It's not worth a promotion to betray someone that you care about. But man,
so
really
like, where
tough.
are we? Where are we in the movie right now? Because
we might be halfway.
Like halfway. Yeah.
no. Like what is so? Like, Luke, do your thing. Like,
we are right before the Pirate Council.
So, like, the reason why, so like they were prisoner on the ship, Norrington lets them go, and the reason they were prisoner on the ship is
because Will was selling them to Sao Fang, but then Sao Fang had to deal with Beckett.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was a triple cross. Is the reason that happened.
Got it.
Okay. Totally got it.
No. What's next?
Okay, next we have Shipwreck Cove and the Pirate Council. So the Pirate Council are all the head pirates all coming together. Basically, the conversation is, should we fight Beckett and Davy Jones? What do we do? But as Jess said, Barbossa knows that they have Calypso. That is the big ace up their sleeve, is having Calypso. And before they get there, is that when Tia Dalma or Calypso now and Davy Jones have their scene? Because she's on the ship, and maybe that's a little bit later.
No,
Yes.
I think that's before they get to the council, where she's like, don't forget our deal, touches him, and he turns back to I guess, dead body. So just like bones.
Yeah.
That's a great scene. That's one of my favorite scenes. I felt like they could have had more with this relationship, but I'm glad we got that scene. Got to see Bill Nighy in a fake beard. Always nice. Wish it was just like him in Love Actually. But
the Pirate Council thing, I guess, remind me, what do the other pirate lords, stand to gain from this whole ordeal?
I think it's the idea that Beckett can't be stopped. Like with Davy Jones at the helm and the Dutchman at the helm, their way of life is about to be ruined. And that's why everyone from across the weather, we have our French, we have our African, we have our Asian pirate lord. It's like,
yeah, to the ends of the earth, right?
The United Nations of the Brethren of Pirates all together. I do love this scene. I like this. I think if we're in a franchise, let's get crazier. Let's have this council of pirates. And then one of the most notable parts of this movie is we learn that the code is real. It is written down.
It's
and
hilarious.
The keeper of the code is the Rolling Stones guitarist that Johnny Depp may or may not have copied his performance of Jack Sparrow on, is Keith Richards. Keith Richards is the keeper of the code, which I remember first when this came out, it was such an in-joke that it was, a lot of people didn't like it, or it was mocked, like, oh really, you got Keith Richards? Rewatching it, I really liked it. Like, taking it out of the context of the film, I really liked it.
Is he supposed to be playing Blackbeard? Is that like the whole thing?
No, he's actually supposed to be Jack's older brother, which I think that was not necessary.
It was his dad.
Or dad? I
thought
it was
his dad, because he asks, how's mom? But I guess he could have asked an older brother that. I don't know, though. He looked pretty old.
Keith Richards plays Captain
Teague. Let's see if there's like a
lineage.
Oh yeah,
I was kind of hoping it was his dad to follow along the daddy issues we've been seeing.
Oh, you're right. It is. It is the son, and the daddy issues continue. Yeah, this is on Pirates of the Caribbean Wiki. A legendary pirate in his own right, Teague occasionally reappeared in the life of his son Jack. Okay, yes. So you're correct. The daddy issues continue. Obviously, Jack has copied his entire look on his dad, who's the librarian of the pirate code, the keeper of the code.
I really had no idea that Johnny Depp modeled his character, studied Keith Richards, and that's now the joke that they're making here. I never realized.
Oh, you didn't? I remember that during when this movie came out was a big deal because people mocked that it was just him doing Keith Richards. And they kind of
I was too young to
called
understand.
out the criticism in a real way. I do like the line, "This is madness." Jack says, "This is politics." I thought that was I think that's after everyone starts fighting.
That did feel very appropriate. I noticed, I don't know when it happens during the whole thing, but when Barbossa's up on the table giving his speech, his accent changes. I was super confused. I was like, oh, did you just kind of lose that?
It's his leadership accent. It's more of his politics, when
his projecting accent.
Yes.
Entirely possible.
So they're talking about what they should do. Obviously, there's conflict with the pirates, but when it comes down to it, they have Calypso, and they decide to stand and fight. Am I correct in that?
Well, they had the disagreement on different courses of action, or release Calypso, fight, or just stay in the stronghold of the Shipwreck Cove. And then they do the vote of we have to have a pirate lord to declare war. And they go around and vote. And at the very end, Jack votes for Elizabeth. So she's the pirate king. Sorry,
which is needed to commit an act of war. Yeah, Mike. If Jess wasn't here for this episode, I think we would have to end it. We'd have to take a nap.
I do think it's funny that they have to, that whoever's voted, in order to be pirate king, you have to get majority vote or a plurality vote, but that never happens because all the pirates are so selfish. They only vote for themselves.
Yes.
I just find that so funny.
It is good. It is a fun little politics joke, but also I think it also shows Jack's savviness. And like you said, Jess, Jack is he's not reserved in this film, obviously, because he has too many Jacks on his shoulders, but he's making decisions a little bit clearer. It feels less like he's just walking into a lucky situation, more like he kind of knows what he's doing. I don't know.
Yeah, he's playing plot chess.
Yes.
And you can see that kind of looking back from the beginning. I think Jack's plot line makes sense because his whole thing is he just wants to be a pirate forever. How do you do that? You become the next Davy Jones.
Right.
And, I think at one point, one of the little Jacks is well, you can get sortie wenches every 10 years. Perfect. But I really do think the soberness does well for his strategic thinking.
Yes.
And he kind of knew what was going to happen. Elizabeth would do anything to get Will back, right? So when they go, I guess jumping ahead a little bit, we'll get there, but he knows what he's doing. He's kind of playing on what he thinks the people around him will do, and he's right.
He is the ultimate politician in some ways because he knows the motivation of all the people that he's working with and how they can help serve his end. He would do really good in Washington these days. I think Jack Sparrow would fit in really well with the culture and the characters in Washington. So that's he would dominate. I think he would. Be
there's an election coming up.
Yeah, Jack Sparrow, write him in. Write him in, everybody. Let's get a movement started on this podcast. Write in Jack Sparrow for president. Okay, so the final battle, Elizabeth as the Pirate King says, we're going to stand and fight. We have this climactic face-off. Now, there's a couple, before they like actually engage, they meet halfway on this island where we have a very spaghetti Western face-off of Beckett, Davy Jones, Will versus Barbossa, Elizabeth, and Jack. Pretty interesting conflict that Jack is on the other side.
Also,
but I think it's a nice setup.
I find it hilarious that Davy Jones has to stand in a tub of water.
Yes.
I like how they get around that, though, which makes me think there's a little bit more flexibility to this kind of 10 years at sea thing. Because you could, I mean, just put a bunch of buckets in a row and then like live in a bathtub for a couple days. So you could get around that.
He really could just live in a tank. Like, he could just go to SeaWorld and hang out for 10 years and be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Live with the very sad whales.
Fun with the fishes.
So we face off spaghetti Western style. I don't know a ton about British naval history, but that looks like the entire British fleet from around the world is there, which seems pretty crazy. Like, that's a lot of ships there. It looks cool, but I was like, okay, I guess the King of England was like, all right, send them all down there. We need them.
They're like, I'm assuming trying to recreate the Spanish Armada. Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool scene, but it's like, I was like, wow, there's a lot of ships. There's a ship ton of ships. All right. This is something that I hate, but I hate that I think it's bad. And I remember this in the theater. I think Elizabeth's pump up speech is not great, and I think it's written really poorly. I don't think it's a reflection of Keira Knightley. It's just there's something off about it.
It is off.
When she is like, listen. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
It didn't do it for me.
Again, I just feel like it was poorly written, and I feel like she was undermined the whole movie in some ways. I feel like Elizabeth in the first film almost would have been set up better. Like her character in the first film.
I'm wondering if it's still like a little bit of sexism in movies of like, okay, wow, she's gone from just somebody who's finally kind of being accepted as a pirate to a pirate lord to a pirate king. They kind of cut her down to like not give her too much power. Because one of the questions I had on here is how much power can Elizabeth Swann get, but also at the detriment of she's not really treated with respect when she has that power. So kind of an interesting thing of what that looks like. Because if it would have been the opposite and like Elizabeth was trying to get her dad back and Will was now the pirate king, they wouldn't have made those same jokes. I think the speech probably would have been better.
Right. I think that's a good point. I think that's exactly what it is and why it feels strange. But, she gets him going. They're excited. The Black Pearl's getting out there. I really, and like you said, Mike, this is where the movie really kicks in from an action standpoint that I think is really strong, where we have the two iconic ships that we know in the franchise going head to head in a maelstrom that is... Okay.
No, we missed the big part where that comes up.
Oh,
Calypso gets released.
Or Calypso, yes. And I forgot about it because she just disappears.
Yep, into a pile of rock crabs.
Yeah, it comes back to the crabs, the magical crabs.
Yep.
So, yeah, it seems, and maybe it's in the next film. I have not seen the next film. I have not seen the next film. But it seems strange to build up this hype with Calypso and then set her free, and then she disappears. I guess she does affect the battle because she creates the storm. But again, it just feels like we lose that significance of her with Davy Jones.
Yeah, what I was expecting to happen when I saw this the first time, or what I hoped was happening, is, hey, Calypso's been bound in human form for years and years. She's pissed.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to turn into sea goddess and like, I don't know if you guys watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, but there's the scene where he's like the avatar and he's the water avatar and he's like, like knocks everybody out with these giant tidal waves. I thought that was going to happen and she was just going to wipe the slate clean.
Yeah, that makes more
like
sense, right?
Pearl.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Like, she's pissed at everybody. Like, you're all going down. Like, you all have screwed me over in different ways. Like, you're all going down, and that's what sets the battle up. Is like it's in this rubble that they're fighting but trying to survive. Calypso's going crazy, but that didn't happen. You're right.
Yeah, but she did create the maelstrom, the whirlpool, if you will, and that did create quite an interesting scene. And I feel like any good sailor would know you don't go into those. But
Barbossa doesn't give a shit. He's like,
he's on borrowed time. Like, this is his second life. So
yeah, he's like, I'm having fun. I'm on my ship with my crew. We're having a blast. Like, we're just going for it.
It's like a roller coaster. You're like, woo!
Full send with
One
Barbossa.
of my favorite parts of the movie is when he's like, so he's asked to man the helm, right? And he realizes that they need him, so he does this. They're swirling down the whirlpool, and he screams, "More speed!" He's sailing a sailboat.
Let's go faster.
Let's go faster.
Power. Yep. Okay. Speaking of this scene, because if you've ever been in a above ground pool or a smaller size pool in your childhood, what we see here is very reminiscent. I don't know if you experience this. When you're a kid and you're in an above ground pool, you always try to make a maelstrom or a typhoon or funnel by running around the edges of the pool really fast. Did you both do that, or is that just me?
Oh yeah. Every round body of water should have a whirlpool created by humans.
Did you guys ever get it that intense as we saw in this film?
No, but usually you do it enough till there was some current, and then everyone would stop running, and then you'd kind of like float on the current, and it was like, whoa, crazy.
Essentially, that's what Calypso did for the Flying Dutchman and the Black Pearl facing off. Now, the physics don't make sense at all, but it looks pretty cool.
It does.
And that's movies, right? That's movies. So much happens in this battle. It's hard to keep track of. But basically, the goal is Will wants to get... No. Oh, boy. Help me.
So Jack's on the Flying Dutchman. He was prisoner, and that's where he wanted to be, because his motivation in this movie is, I want to be the eternal captain, Jack Sparrow.
Yes.
So he's on the Dutchman, and this is kind of the first ship of the battle, you know, Black Pearl versus Flying Dutchman. Got to get through this to get to the British Navy, right? So they're colliding. This is kind of like years of resentment. Like, we all hate you, Flying Dutchman, and then the Flying Dutchman crew just hate everybody. They're grumpy guys, you know.
Yes,
they got
not happy.
Dark heads. So then the ships do the thing where they swing people across. So half the crew's on the Flying Dutchman fighting there, and the other half's on the Black Pearl fighting there. And Jack's trying to find the heart. The two guys who, I forget their names, but the callback guys from the first movie.
The British sailors, yes. Yes.
He doesn't even trick them. They trick themselves, and he just grabs the box. So good. And then he's looking for the key, right? So gets the key, and that's his motivation. Everyone else is just trying to fight to get to the next battle. And then at some point, I'm not quite sure when, there's a marriage.
Yes. There is a marriage. Barbossa marries Will and Elizabeth.
I don't get it.
Some might say this was a flintlock gun wedding.
Yes. Some may say that.
Mike may say that. I would say this. Some may say this is a gunpowder wedding.
I literally wrote that down when I was
proud of
watching
you.
this last night, and Shannon was like, "I don't get it," and I was like it's not a shotgun wedding; it's a flintlock gun wedding. She goes, "It's not funny."
You did not take that feedback, I'm guessing.
I rarely do.
Rarely does.
But it doesn't really, like, again, why does it need to happen there? They kind of explain it later of like, oh, you know,
They haven't consummated, so they need to get married before they consummate.
right. But also, you know, one of the characters is going to die in the movie. They don't
Right.
know that yet. But I think that was their way of being like, well, even if he's undead and like he doesn't have a heart, they're married, so it doesn't really matter. So I think
Right,
it was
it-
kind of like pre-accepting the condition.
Yeah, it kind of tells the audience like, oh, everything's fine. Their relationship's fine. They're getting married. Like they're in love. I know the whole movie we've been telling you they're not in love, and we've built up this sexual tension between Jack and Elizabeth for 2 movies, but it's all fine. Everything's fine. They're all fighting and having fun.
But I think
you
they
know
were
what?
also doing that to make it more devastating when Will does
That's
that.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Now,
Luke is so cynical.
what? Weddings they can be very expensive. They can be very complicated. You know, you have 2 different families come together. You have in-laws, a lot of decisions to be made. A lot of people like to do the courthouse wedding. I think we need to start the trend of the ship wedding and just in the middle of a battle, have a captain marry ya.
Yeah, ship it, right?
Just ship it.
Yeah, I ship that. Yep, that's good. That's good.
Let's
Jess.
get it going. Because, I mean, they didn't have to worry about, getting a venue or, picking out flowers. They didn't have to worry
Is
about
this an
catering.
elopement?
And yes.
Well, they do have a honey.
Or is,
Yeah,
is
they have a
this a
honeymoon.
destination wedding?
It's a destination wedding. We want to get.
We'll
you
wait
know
on
what?
that.
My Pinterest is full of maelstroms, and I'm really looking for a lot of undead pirates, a lot of wood, a lot of gunpowder,
Yeah.
and swords.
Yeah, distressed wood.
A lot of distressed wood. I'm looking to wear like kind of like a
You know, if it rains at your wedding, it's good
kimono
luck too.
style, like armor, Chinese armor outfit. That's what I'm looking for as a bride.
They didn't do a first lock.
No, they didn't.
They're non-traditional,
Not
They're
I like
very
it.
modern.
Yeah, they're progressive for that time.
Yeah,
they're
progressive.
Yeah, so
Yes.
that happens. And then somehow they both end up on the Flying Dutchman, where Jack is finally, he has the heart, he has the knife, and he's looking at Davy Jones being like, I'm going to do it. And then Davy Jones is like, fine, and stabs Will. So now Jack has the moral decision of, am I going to let my friend die? Because I think they're friends at this point. If I had to guess their relationship status, it'd be friends.
Yeah, if
It-
Jack
it's
has any
frenemies?
friends, Will's one.
Yeah,
of
it's the
them.
closest thing to like a friend or like a younger brother. It's closer to younger brother than friend, I feel like.
Yeah, but it shows Jack's empathetic side again. I think fueled by the sobriety. But Jack then realizes, like, okay, if I want to watch my little bro die, I got to do that, and I got to stab his heart, or I can give up my opportunity to be the eternal Captain Jack Sparrow and let Will live. And that was his choice. And then you see him holding Will's hand to stab the heart. And then the ship, the Flying Dutchman, gets detached. They like break the main mast. So the
Yes.
ships like fly apart. Somehow the Black Pearl gets out of the maelstrom. The Flying Dutchman doesn't, but we've seen that ship go underwater, so we're not worried. But the big question is, nobody really knows who's captaining the ship except for like a few people who saw that happen. But the British
Becca has
Navy-
no idea. Yeah, Becca has no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, he thinks either the ship went down or like David Jones is just playing hide and seek or something.
Right.
So then the Black Pearl's heading towards the rest of the Navy fleet. And then the Flying Dutchman kind of pops up and they're going like 3 going towards each other. And then the Black Pearl and the Flying Dutchman go parallel to go towards the main ship of the Armada.
Which is,
And
if you
then-
know anything about naval warfare, that is the worst situation to be in because you're screwed. There's no way out. typically you're not going to be able to even float after that because naval warfare, and this is only from watching Master and Commander, you really want to, you want to get the other ship where you can approach them at a higher speed and get off more fire, like gunpowder bullet fires. Okay. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways, It's bad. It's bad.
And I love the scene where Beckett is realizing this is his just desserts. Yeah. And they're like, what do you want us to do? What does she want to do? And he's just like, it's just good business. Like, he can't even say abandoned ship. It's
such a good scene. It honestly makes up for the entire movie. That one scene, yeah, because it's the most memorable moment of the movie. I think it makes up for almost the entire movie. I wouldn't watch this movie just to watch that scene, but I would definitely watch this scene pulled out of the movie because it's gorgeous. The visual effects still hold up, and
some would say that this scene inspired Christopher Nolan to write Inception. Because this is
some would say, Mike would say,
scene.
It is. It's very similar to the Paris scene with Leo DiCaprio. But Tom Hollander, such a good actor, such a good character actor, British actor. His face as he's walking, and especially when he's holding the railing too. It's like very delicate. Okay. It's a great scene. I totally agree. It's one of my favorites. You really can't. Outside of a couple scenes in the first film, it definitely stands out to me as like one of the top moments of the franchise.
Something that doesn't really add up to me, like with the motivations of Jack and Davy Jones and yada, 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 is like, so if you think about like in the first movie, the crew of the Black Pearl were like tormented because they were immortal. Or undead or whatever. But yeah, that seems to be the number one thing that Jack wants, and seems to be the like what Will seems to have wanted. Like, Will does not seem upset that he's now an immortal pirate. You know what I mean?
I think it's more of just an acceptance, right? Because Jack is not really thinking, he doesn't have this like romantic view that the pirates are going to win. I think, like Jess has been saying, he's sober. Like, he knows they're pretty screwed. He either has to serve, and Davy Jones is going to make him serve his time. So he either has to serve his time or kill Davy Jones.
What the heck?
Balloons?
Okay, so then, like, is it no longer Davy Jones' locker? Is it Will Turner's locker now?
Yeah.
I think he becomes Davy Jones.
Is Davy Jones a pseudonym? Yeah, it's just a title.
Is 007 James Bond, or is James Bond 007?
I don't know.
What's like the Dred Scott pirate from Princess Bride?
Yes, that's what it is. It's the dreaded. Yeah, exactly. It's a Princess Bride situation.
Yeah, but I think like this would be a different type of undead because it's not really a curse. It's more of like a job contract. Like, you give up your heart for immortality. Where the other one was like, you were greedy and now you're going to suffer. So Jack was more looking like, I'm very powerful. I can travel between worlds. Nobody can catch me. I'm a pirate, but not really, you know?
Yeah, it's
he becomes like this
taking away all of the bad parts of being a pirate.
Yeah.
There is a pursuit of immortality, because at the end of the movie, our new plotline has been created where Barbossa's after the Fountain of Youth.
Did you also notice, speaking on what you're talking about, Luke, I mean, these charts were so coveted, and I had no idea that all you had to do was turn them, and all of a sudden,
my kind of chart. All you have to do is turn it and line up the little figures. That's my kind of puzzle. Very simple.
And also, this Fountain of Youth is like in Key West.
Yeah, it's in Florida. Well, that's true. That is the lore. It's in Florida. Because
I didn't realize that.
Come on, Mike. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. It's the Fountain of Youth for a lot of people. Like Florida. It still is. It still is.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, I think they're that theme of pirates are seeking immortality, yet they are immortal in our culture, in pop culture. Like there's this,
Yeah. Almost like dinosaurs in a way.
almost like dinosaurs, but they're actually not good people. Like we don't glorify. I guess in America we do glorify. Like we glorify kind of like the Western cowboy villain, but they're glorified villains, and they have become eternal. Like if kids are dressing up as them, they are in the realm, even though they're essentially criminals.
We don't do this with just pirates, though. I mean, we do this
I guess it's
with,
true.
We do this
Michael
with
Myers.
medieval characters. We do this with not even just characters, just this idea that like being a knight is glorifying, which it was at the time. Pirates, not so much. So like I guess that's a little bit different, but
It's a deeper discussion.
But I think what ties them together is the sense of adventure between like a knight and a pirate. And with a pirate, you get the sense of adventure with also like an overwhelming sense of freedom. Of I'm going to do what I want with who I want, when I want, and I don't care about what anybody else wants. I think people maybe miss the details on pirates where they are kind of horrible people and do very distasteful things, and also like horrific things. But they are so focused on like the positive attributes of adventure and freedom. They're kind of like, well, maybe they killed some people, maybe they robbed people, but like they're just guys having fun. Like that's
just dudes being guys.
Dudes being
guys.
But that freedom aspect is part of Jack's motivation, and that's what he contemplates with his little Jacks is that with Davy Jones, you live forever. You get to be really one of the main top employees of the ocean, but you're part of this 10-year contract. You have a boss, but if you're free, eventually you die. So are you free forever? No, but you're free without a boss, as you know, Calypso's not your boss. So it comes back to that core idea of Jack Sparrow and freedom that is throughout the whole movie. Yeah, it's really interesting as we've talked about this. I feels like Jack's plot is actually like the most grounded out of any of the characters.
It's consistent with his motivations throughout the whole series, and like I think they could have cut it to Jack's plot and what was it, Diadoma?
Yeah, Diadoma, Calypso and Jones,
I
right?
think those two plots could have made this movie wonderful.
Right.
The additional plots of like Will and Elizabeth and like all the pirate lords made it complicated, but I think those two plots I think are the most interesting and the most grounded, like you were saying, where you could have made like a movie that made sense with those two plots.
Right. And I guess that's what the franchise decides to do is like, let's shed a little bit of the weight, dead weight with Will specifically, and let's focus on Jack and his storylines and his adventures. Okay, we have to wrap up a few more things in the plot, and then we'll get to rankings. Will and Elizabeth consummate on the island. Just a very strange thing. Just I don't know why they added this at the tail end. I guess to just let us know that they're going to have a kid, or to prove that they're going to have a kid if we needed proof. And then we find out that Jack is stranded, and he's back right where he started with his little dinghy. Barbossa has taken the Black Pearl as they search for the Fountain of Youth. I really love this ending. I thought it was a fitting ending because essentially Jack's still a captain. He doesn't really care even. Like the adventure, like you said, Jess, the adventure and freedom is still there. He's still kind of loving it.
Yeah. I think especially now that he has the map, we have our heading type of an energy. I liked the ending a lot. The island scene with Will and Elizabeth, but
I mean, they're
when
beautiful
he comes
people.
back with the same ladies as we saw in previous movies, and Mr. Gibbs is sleeping on the dock, that was fantastic to me. He's like, "We're not on the ship." And he's like, "What?
What?"
Where's the ship?" Like,
It's true to like these guys, they could have these crazy adventures and these crazy stories, but they're still the same old pirates. Like that's who they are to their core. Yeah. I mean, the island scene with Elizabeth and Will, you know what? I'll have a golden hour with those two actors. Just filming them is fine for me. I mean, they're beautiful people, but not necessary. So that is the end of the film. We do get a post-credit scene. 10 years later, Elizabeth and her son await Will's return as the Flying Dutchman emerges after the 10 years. So that's nice.
Yeah, I think, again, going back to the consistent plotline of daddy issues, Will did exactly what his dad did to him and, like, is a sailor who's never there for his family, which it felt like in the first movie, he was like, that sucked. And I didn't sense that he would do that to his family. And then I guess, like, you know, death or once every 10 years is still better. But
yeah,
I feel like as his kid, I'd be a little resentful. Yeah.
I guess for Will, it's a full circle thing too. Like his son has basically started out where he was.
Better.
And Elizabeth is now a mother, as she should be. Apparently, that's what the movie's telling us.
What else are women good for, right?
Pirate King, though. She's still Pirate King.
But she's part-time.
She's a working mom.
She's a working mom. Working mom as the Pirate King. Okay. That is the end of the beat by beat plot. Jess, thanks for getting us through that adventure. I felt like we were just pulled into a maelstrom vortex. But we made it on the other side alive. Now we have to rank the film. Okay, so we do this out of 1 out of 5 Jolly Rogers, 1 being the least, 5 being the most. For context, the first Pirates film, Mike and I gave it both 5 Jolly Rogers out of 5 Jolly Rogers. The second film, Mike gave it 3 out of 5 Jolly Rogers. Our guest Zach and myself gave it 2.5 Jolly Rogers out of 5. So you can do half. Don't do 0.75, but you can do halves. That's allowed here.
Okay.
What do you rate at World's End out of 5 Jolly Rogers, Jess?
I think the simple answer is a 2. That does not mean I will never watch this again. So the nostalgia is stronger than my opinion on plot holes.
I love it. The nostalgia is stronger, and that's what's important.
It's as strong as those little rock crabs, so that's
Mike,
what it is.
Give me your rating.
I think the first 2 hours of this movie is a 1 Jolly Roger, but the last half hour is a 3.5 Jolly Roger.
Wow. So it's a sliding scale based on when you're watching.
I would say on the whole, Jess is right. I think 2 Jolly Rogers is the right rating for me, at least. And I also agree with Jess. This will not prevent me from watching it or sharing it with the next generation.
Beautiful. I'm also going to do a 2. I feel like I could have done a 1.5, but that scene with Beckett is so gorgeous. And I think it's the other thing that technically this movie holds up so well. And the set pieces and the CGI, I was surprised how well it held up. So that's where it to me, it still holds up as a 2 Jolly Rogers out of 5. So it's 2 Jolly Rogers across the board. That's actually better than I thought. I'm impressed. And I think we've talked about some highlights. All right. Okay. Anything else before we wrap up, before we pull down the mast, we come into port for At World's End?
I really do think if Jack kept up his sobriety and like maybe showered every once in a while, he could be like a great inventor or engineer of the day. He's really got a sense of physics and ingenuity that I can appreciate.
Jack is the proto Edison. He's right there on the edge.
Yeah, he could have discovered electricity first. Who knows?
Who knows? The legend could be true. Mike, your final thoughts as we enter.
This movie is... I mean, the Rotten Tomatoes on this particular movie is quite bad. It's like a 44, but the audience score is a 72, and I think that kind of highlights what what Pirates mostly is. It's not it's not loved by the experts, but it's loved by its fans. 72 is a bit high for me. You know, what's difficult is if you were a fan and survived through the first two, if you like watched Dead Man's Chest and you were like, I still really want to watch the third one, and then you watch the third one and you're like, okay, I'm content with how that goes. I mean, the fourth one is so bad. And so that's like really what's frustrating is as a fan of the franchise, you get bludgeoned. So yeah.
Prepare your body and mind. It's interesting. This movie tries to be all things. There's so many plot lines to wrap up, and they're making new plot lines as they're wrapping up plot lines. I think Jess hit it. If they could have tightened it a little bit, it would have been a really strong film. I'm actually excited for the next step in this franchise because I haven't seen the fourth and fifth installments. So I'm really interested to see where they go. If they really focus on Jack, they keep it a little bit more simplified. I think it'll be really enjoyable because they're not trying to cram in all of this character development of plot lines and wrap up these people, get them married, get that eye to have a reason for existing, the eyeball. Like, really? Like, we had to make the eyeball have a reason for existing. The dog comes back. I mean, the monkey and parrot relationship, all these plot lines coming back into fruition. I'm excited just to start fresh, start with a new story and move along in this adventure.
And essentially a whole new cast.
Exactly. Like a fresh start, which I think franchises can do. And I think this is the end of a trilogy, end of some of these storylines for these characters. I'm excited to see something new. But overall, this movie, there's some really strong parts of it. It's a continuation of Dead Man's Chest for me. I remember in the theater, my feeling was like, meh, they don't need to make these anymore. But I'm excited to see what they did do next. All right, Jess, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for really carrying this episode like you were a magical crab and Davy Jones' locker.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time.
Mike, are you ready for the next adventure? Too bad. You're on the boat. Let's go.